Okay.
when it's read.
Yeah.
Good morning. It is 10:01. We are waiting for a quorum on the dais, and then I will call the meeting to order. Good morning. I am calling to order this meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee on Wednesday. August what? Where are we? On Wednesday, August 28th at 10:02 a.m. Let's begin with a roll call.
Vice Chairperson Chavez
Here.
and Chairperson Ellenberg.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
And again, thank you to FAF and the team that I hear worked late into the night to make sure that the chambers were ready for us this morning. So thank you. I'm going to open public comment now. This is the portion of the agenda set aside for members of the public wishing to address this committee on matters not on today's agenda, but within the purview of the Public Safety and Justice Committee. Do we have speakers either in chambers or on Zoom?
We have one speaker on Zoom.
All right, last call for speakers. When the first speaker begins speaking, the queue will close.
And we're holding at one.
Okay, thank you.
Our first speaker is Ben. Ben Z, I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, hello, good morning. I wanted to talk to this committee and see if something could be done that, I've told you guys a million times that my kids are being sexually abused and the county is refusing to do anything about it because Judge Towery and my former attorney, they want the sexual abuse to continue. And I know that they're powerful and they're connected and all that, but still, we're talking about little children. we're talking about a child as young as 2 years old. We're talking about a 13-year-old who's confirmed being anally raped. And the only response that the county has for me when I've gone directly to Mr. Rosen and I've told Mr. Rosen, look, this is the sexual abuse, and I outlined it in detail. And the response that I got was charges filed against me in order to conceal the sexual abuse. And not only that, but I'm being assaulted. I mean, as recently as 2 days ago, I was assaulted. And these charges are incentivizing these assaults because there's no repercussions. And these people who are sex trafficking my kids, they're using the proceedings to conceal the sexual abuse. And so I know you guys must have, some of you guys must have kids. I mean, I can't be the only one who knows what it's like to be a parent. I can't be the only one who knows what it is to value his own life. Is there somebody on this committee who can either talk to Mr. Rosen and ask him to do something about it? Or is there somebody, maybe Chef Johnson, I don't know if he's present, I can't see in my phone. Can you do something to protect my kids? Can you do something to stop the assaults that are being perpetrated against me? I mean, I posted online, Sheriff Johnson, if you want to see online, you Google Valerie Houghton, Houghton, sex trafficking. I posted details on several websites. It should pop up for you. You can see the results, the great bodily harm that's been caused to me. If you could, somebody, there's got to be somebody here who can help me. Please. Supervisor Chavez, she's got all my contact information to get a hold of me. Please, if you can help me, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
And that was our final speaker.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to the consent calendar right now. Just want to make a couple of comments, if that's all right, and then I will turn to Vice Chair Chavez. I'm happy to place item 4 on consent with a few quick comments. That's the report from Custody Health Services and Programs. I am very glad that we are making access to optometry services less cost prohibitive and that the reading glasses pilot has expanded to Elmwood. I'm also pleased with the county's work on the master scheduling project and on offering some over-the-counter medications without charge to people in custody at Elmwood and Main Jail commissaries. These are both really important initiatives, and I will look forward to the next update. Last but not least, I want to congratulate Dr. Kristen Walsh for her, because she is the first custody health provider to be recognized under Valley Health Foundation's Clinician Celebration Program. So congratulations, Dr. Walsh, and thank you, Rocio and team, for the report. Next, I would like to remove item 11, the quarterly report on jail populations, off of consent. I don't need a presentation, but I have a couple of questions. And that would be my motion. And do you have other changes?
I would second that. I just want to make one comment on the custody health services.
Please.
You know, I know I have raised a number of times the issues about how we make sure people get their medications off-site and under what terms and conditions we would be putting pharmacies in the facility. I would ask, I think staff did a report some time ago that explained the process for you being able to put a pharmacy into the custody facility directly. I was hoping that staff could reroute that to the board in the next couple of weeks. If you look at that report, Dr. Luna, and this happened long before your watch, and you feel there's any information that should be updated, if you would just send out the old report, but add that you'll be following up with information about that. I think it's going to be important as we're looking at layering on the construction of new facilities. We can't wait forever for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have public comment on the consent calendar?
There are no requests to speak.
All right, let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez
Yes.
and Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 5 is to receive a verbal report from the Office of the Sheriff relating to Restorative Services Division programs. And is Dr. Child with us? Hi. Excuse me.
With my laptop, so I have a hero saving me today.
We all need them. If it would be easier, we could go to item 5 and then come back.
Oh. I have a loaner laptop that did not agree with me today. so,
That's
yeah.
not a problem. This is not a critique. I just want to keep us
No, I know, yeah.
keep us moving. If you think it'll be more than another minute, I'll go to item 5 and then come back. 6. Just testing you all. All right, let's do that. We'll go
That's okay.
to.
We'll
That's
come
all right,
back.
Amanda. Take your time. No panic. Yeah, of course. So let's go to Matt. Thank you.
President, is it okay if I present from here?
Please.
Okay. So I'd like to just give a very cursory report because this subject matter gets pretty technical pretty quick, and I don't want to put people to sleep.
Could you bring your mic a little bit closer,
sure.
please?
Sure. So the goal of integrating pretrial services, or pretrial data, really, in the umbrella sense of the term, information about all the parties in our system before they're adjudicated with the jail management system. It's actually more expansive because CJIC, we have two systems. CJIC is a shared platform. It's been in place for 6 decades. To replace CJIC, you have to replace over a dozen systems. POPS is also built by TSS. It's a great system, and that's the Pretrial Operations Production System. Those two systems talk, and they've talked for a couple of decades. The plan that we have is to blend the data, as we do now, as the first of many replacements is the jail management system. So the jail management system is taking the lead. All these other systems that depend on CJIC are going to stay in place for the time being, yes.
Is the jail management system, is that a group of people that manage, or is that the name of another database as well?
It's another database. So CJIC helps the sheriff, the jail, pretrial, probation, the DA. It's really supporting all of us. The court used to be on CJIC. The court went and got its own system. And so to replace CJIC, it's going to take a while. It has to be very strategic. The leading project right now is that jail management system, the JMS. To keep everything stable, like pretrial depends on CJIC too. TSS has a strategic plan to keep everything in place for continuity of operations. They're going to make sure that the JMS system comes up live smoothly and on time because the jail is crucial. CJIC will remain in place. So for the next year, the pretrial exchanges with the jail management system, they'll be worked on, but we're not going to turn them on. until everything's ready. And then the following year, we have some enhancements that we'll do. And to not go into a lot of detail, the whole idea is to be able to blend our data, to be able to communicate better, to be able to make daily operational decisions quickly, because if you lose an hour, it might not be till the next day that you get something done. And the third thing is to be able to have this rich data that gives us a history that we haven't had before. Rather than just a daily snapshot, we'll be able to see everything that happened throughout the day, and we'll be able to look at our processes and continuously make sure that they're supporting our county principles. So timeliness, equal access to justice, informed decision-making. We want the judges to have as much information as early as possible. So that's the plan. Everything remains in place for the next year, and once the sheriff is happy with the jail management system and everybody's comfortable, then we start to see the changes.
Do you have any questions?
So let me just say, I requested this item to just be presented for a couple of reasons, but one is that I wanted to make sure that pretrial services wasn't left out of the loop because it's such an important tool. And the other was, and I'm really appreciating you talked about it, is making sure that all parties eventually will have access who need information to make decisions. I think the number one feedback that we've gotten from both the courts and a number of our partners is that they don't have full information and they're not able to look at it in real time. So this is really a very exciting move. What I would recommend is that I think this topic is, it's a long, historic, painful discussion relative to utilization, and that what I would just recommend is that it may be worth doing some graphs about what's happening in what order, along with a work plan that demonstrates how your department will get integrated into the overall system. There's an overall integration timeline that shares it in very broad terms, but it's very difficult to understand from reading this what the implications are of each of these actions. So if you did it in the form of a work plan, even off agenda, I think would be helpful both to the committee and probably to the board as a whole, because as the system comes live, I think we're going to have lots of discussions about it, and there are so many different parties that are using the same system that it might not be as easy to understand the discrete opportunities relative to pretrial services that I think are available based on what you said. But as an example, it says it will be investigating the feasibility and utility of helpful data exchanges. That was probably the most important sentence here, and understanding what that is and why it's significant would be helpful.
Supervisor, if I could just offer this thought in response to the question you're asking. I think part of the complexity is the work that TSS is leading to replace what, as Matt mentioned, is our CJIC system, which was built for interoperability with a whole bunch of other legacy systems. So part of the challenge in replacing CJIC has been not breaking the existing information exchanges that we've got. The court's appropriate, wonderful replacement of its use of CJIC with a more modern system has demonstrated just how easy it is to create incredible workflow challenges as we try to move through this integration. So I think it would be helpful for TSS to kind of walk through how they're architecting change management around this. And I would just observe that in addition to swapping out the technology, they're working really hard to work with the departments to understand how to not make a mistake that we've made in a lot of other technology replacements, which is trying to fit the new technology into old workflows that were designed around the old technology. So there's a lot of human workflow change that we're trying to accomplish as we replace the technology, because the technology allows us to do things better, more efficiently than have been done before, faster. And so, and at the same time, we're having to do interim change management as some of those systems that we're currently using kind of break as we replace them, because we're breaking connections that were to the existing legacy CJIC system. So I think it would probably be really helpful to have TSS come in and present, but then to hear from folks like Matt, from the sheriff's office, from others who are working directly with the TSS staff on how they're also trying to re-engineer some of our workforce workflows to make, to better leverage the new technology we're going to have and to make those connections.
Thank you both very much. If I could ask Judge McGowan, is the court going to come back and be part of this system, or are we integrating with yours, or we're all staying separate?
Thank you. The court left CJIC some time ago and has no plan to return.
But we will be leveraging comparable technology. There's few vendors in this space, and so the interoperability with the court system is critical as a critical
That's more of what I was
requirement.
asking, whether, not that you're
We
rejoining a
look
system
forward
that
to
wasn't
working together.
satisfactory.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Sheriff Johnson.
I'm still smiling because the judge's subtle little laugh and then, no, we're not coming back. But anyway, just wanted to provide a really quick update on JMS and really a kudos to TSS. They've been phenomenal and working very diligently to make sure we stay on that timeline of 2025. And I bring this up just for your awareness and maybe as an invitation. They just opened last month a lab showing the development of JMS. So we've actually had two grand openings of that lab over at Ritchie Center where individuals can go in and start testing the modules as they're building. So to Matt's earlier comment, they're not going to wait till the whole thing is built out and then start training people. They actually have the working groups in there now working on each individual module as it's being built and developed so they can find and identify any issues that may arise up front and rectify them. So it's going really, really well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Do we have any public commenters on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
All right. Do you want to make a motion?
We'll just
to-
receive the report with a recommendation. Actually, I would defer to staff to come back. I love the outline that you had.
And I'll just share that I'm getting a text from one of the people in TSS who's listening to this conversation and excited to come back and present to you a broader overview.
Fantastic. I will second that motion. Let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez
Yes.
and Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. We are going to go back to item 5. Got the thumbs up that Dr. Child and Amanda are ready to go.
All right, good morning. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for having us here today to talk about the new Sheriff's Division, the Restorative Services Division. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Holly Child. And the Restorative Services Division is a brand new division. And today I'm going to be going through, trying not to take up too much of your time, but give you a large overview of kind of what that division encompasses, what I've discovered in my first 8 months in the Sheriff's Office, and kind of the direction we'd like to go moving forward. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about how we got to the Restorative Division title. And so as you know, the position was actually Inmate Rehabilitation Director. And I just felt like knowing the vision of the department and where they're heading, Restorative Services was a better reflection of that path. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. And I've been doing this work for over 30 years at local, state, national levels. I've been an academic, I've been a practitioner, I've worked with a variety of organizations doing technical assistance, training, program implementation, evaluation. I'm even now a James Bell Structural Wellbeing Ambassador for the organization, and I'm just really excited to be here. This position encompasses kind of all of my life's work into one space, and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to kind of bring forth this change. All right, so why restorative? And this graphic is really reflective, I think, of where a lot of things are heading in the realm of justice systems. And for me, restorative really is the combination of having support, but also with accountability. And as we go through this, you'll see and you'll hear about some of those efforts. The Restorative Services Division has 3 key goals that are kind of guiding us currently. The first one is an expansion and improvement of in-custody programs. A lot of that is looking at doing a mapping of what exists through various partners, looking for gaps and holes in services, looking for ways to improve those services. The other one is expanding and improving out-of-custody programs. We have some really exciting conversations in the works about ways to get people out of custody sooner into supportive services that allow them to reintegrate into their communities and their homes faster. And the last place is to create a healthy workspace for staff. It's kind of like putting on your oxygen mask in order to help others. Working inside the facilities, it's very hard when you're absorbing a lot of the trauma that clients also are dealing with. And so to have a healthy workforce allows for them to provide a healthier environment for the people that we serve. All right, so we do have a few values, and I'm just going to tell you about these because to me, they're very important as we take this division forward. The first one is building partnerships. And so coming into the office, one of the things that I found is that there's a lot of great things that are happening, but putting and connecting all the dots together are really important. And so for me, it's really bringing in community. It's bringing in people who have lived the experience. It's bringing in people with expertise in order to figure out, like, what is our path forward. The next one is repairing, and so I think a lot of our clients have also experienced a lot of harm themselves. Some of them have caused some harm, and it's really important that we work on a space where everyone can heal and move forward. The next one is restoring hope and dignity, and so we actually just got a letter from a client this week and said that when he first was arrested and came in, he felt hopeless and he felt lost. And I want it to be a place where people can say, hey, I feel like there's hope. I feel like there's an opportunity. I feel like there's a future. And so we want to be able to take people who feel lost, who maybe feel hopeless, and give them that hope and dignity back. And then the last one is, or the last two is reducing entries into formal systems. Any way that we can divert or prevent people from coming into custody sooner is fantastic. And the last one is promoting whole person care. So really thinking about what are all the needs that clients have, working with all of our partners and ensuring that all of their needs are met. So this is the structure of the Restorative Services Division. There are 3 units that currently are under there. I'm going to get into some detail on those. One is the programs unit, there's correctional industries, there's custody alternatives, and I'm putting out here hope for a future research unit. So, putting the hope into the wind. Just so you know, this is as of 8/14 when we put the presentation together. For those of you who don't know, if you go to the jail, the sheriff's website on the jail custody page, you can actually see our daily population report. It's updated every day, and it gives you an indication of how many people are in custody. And you'll see that most of the people who are in custody are in there for a felony and they're unsentenced. That creates a little bit of challenges in some areas, but gives us an opportunity to provide services to people early on, and we're really excited about the potential for that. It's no surprise to anyone here today that the key needs for clients are substance use and mental health, and really working together with partners who can provide those services inside the facility are critical. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3 units. That'll help you understand how the division operates. So we'll start with the first one, which is our Custody Alternative Supervision Unit. So if you go to the next slide. Thanks. There's multi-programs in here. Is the Sheriff's Work Program. Many of you are probably familiar with that. It gives people an opportunity to leave custody early. They participate in community service. It's an alternative to jail. We have about 450 people at any time participating in this program. We work together with local county organizations, sometimes little leagues, other places where clients can do community service in lieu of being in custody. And we're really excited about potentially expanding to some larger sites to provide more clients opportunities. The next one is one that many people are familiar with. It's often referred to as CASU, but CASU is actually the unit name. The actual name for the program is the Custody Alternative Supervision Program. This is also an early release program where clients are doing the remaining of their sentence in the community. They receive wraparound services. They work very closely with what we call a rehabilitation officer, which I'll talk about in a little bit. They also work closely with other county partners. Reentry is a gracious host to this program and provides also a lot of services to clients who are in the CASP program. We've seen a lot of great successes, and we are also working to kind of refine and expand this program to clients as well in the future. And then the next program that I want to talk about is the Correctional Industries Program. Pre-COVID, this was the program where you might have had welding and carpentry. COVID, unfortunately, shut down a lot of those programs. a lot of instructors moved on to other things, so it's been very challenging for schools to hire instructors, but we are excited to report that a lot of the schools are starting to re-engage with new instructors, and we are hoping to bring back a lot more vocational programming soon, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the slide. We have some really exciting developments in that area. The idea is for people in custody to have the opportunity not only to have an educational component where they're getting certificates or training or certifications, but also hands-on experience. So when they go out back into their community, they actually have this experience they can talk about and hopefully increase their likelihood of employment upon release. All right, and then the programs unit is one that a lot of people are probably familiar with. It's definitely running programs and services, but I want to talk a little bit about the rehabilitation officers. So we go to the next slide. Many people aren't familiar with what a rehabilitation officer is. They are not sworn staff. They are civilian staff. The position actually is high qualification, so people who've had already experience working with clients, doing case management, doing interventions. We have people who have clinical experience. We have master's level social workers, and they're every day in the units working with clients closely, working on their needs, providing services, ensuring that services are happening. They are the backbone of the programs and services in the facilities. They are also the connection to courts. They're providing court reports. They're helping clients on transition plans. They're working with partners, but they really are the backbone of a lot of services that occur within the facilities. So where do ROs work? I wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown because what you'll see is we don't actually have very many rehabilitation officers for the number of clients we have. So for example, in Maine Jail, we have 2 rehabilitation officers that serve about 700 people. So, they do have focus on what we call program-heavy dorms, which are people who are close to release or people who are looking to engage in a large amount of programming. But everyone receives programming in the facilities, but imagine only 2 rehabilitation officers covering 700 clients. It's quite a lift, and they do a remarkable job with what they have. We are getting ready to hire. We do have a few openings. We're getting ready to hire 2 more ROs, and we'll be placing another one at Maine Jail and another one at Elmwood. So, but we do a lot with the rehabilitation officers. None of this work can happen without our partners and volunteers. 95% of the programs and services that occur in custody are actually not paid for by the Sheriff's Office. They're in partnership and collaboration with other organizations and other county partners. So you can see this is just a sample list. I'm sure if I've excluded someone, I apologize. There was only so much space on the slide, but we really do count on community and our county partners in order to ensure we have the service array that's required. So, a shout out to Custody Health. The eyeglass program has been amazing. They launched it beautifully. We've heard so many positive comments from clients, and so just having great partnerships and ensuring clients get what they need is really the winning secret to success. And so as you know, there is the College Collaborative. This is the data on the spring term. I created this presentation when we were coming out of spring term. And so we had a record number of classes at Maine Jail. I don't know offhand what the number is. I think we're actually doing 9 in Maine Jail. We don't have the final numbers for Elmwood, but those numbers are also increasing. You may or may not have heard that the VET program has not been continuing currently, and that's because the college that offers that program, the facilitator is no longer available, and they just don't have the support to support that class. But we are staying connected to them and working closely in hopes to bring that program back. But we're really excited. There's some exciting classes. The collaborative has been working really hard on articulation agreements, also looking to see where each college can teach a class to get people who are participating in the program certificates or AA degrees. We actually had a client send us a success story that in the year that he was in Elmwood, he completed 50 college credits. So it's a really exciting endeavor. I can't take any credit for it. I'm just telling you about other people's work, but it's just a really exciting endeavor to see this continue. I wanted to highlight some of the recent recognition that's come out. Dr. Patrick Marshall, who was one of the people who really instituted the College Collaborative, along with a college professor who was very instrumental in it. Shout out to Isabel at Mission College. But won an award at a conference for their leadership in the area related to the College Collaborative. We were really excited to see him win that award. We also had Foothill College did a mural reveal. The college was actually, or the mural was actually created by people in custody. It tells their story. They created it. We had some media coverage, and we were just really excited to see more projects like this roll out where people can express their journey through art. Some of you may or may not know, we also just did an art and recovery project. Molly volunteered one of her people for us. And people were able to express their art journey through, or their recovery journey through art. And we had some beautiful, beautiful drawings that were entered into the contest. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is the programs unit was awarded Partner of the Year with the Pro Bono project. The rehabilitation officers and the people in the programs unit work really hard to help clients be educated on post-conviction relief. And so we're really excited to see that recognition for their hard work. Let's talk about some new programs that launched this year. We do have the janitorial program, which I think is one of the gems, and we'd love to see expand. Clients volunteer to participate. They go through actually a classroom training component, so they learn all about, hazardous waste, safety, things like this, and then they actually participate in cleaning. The people who are participating in this program are really driving the program. They're like, hey, we noticed that this area that we live in, we really want this to be a bit different, or we want to clean it different. They're really driving even how we do our paid janitorial services. So it's been a real success, and we're seeing people now being connected. We've been working on second chance people who are doing hiring and connecting them to jobs. I think we just made our first official connection, so we're really excited to see some success from that project. We also just wrapped up our Stanford Compassion Cultivation Project. That was rave reviews from clients. They loved it. They want more of it. So we are keeping an eye out for any grants or funding to continue to expand that project. We also are getting ready to launch our Goodwill store. We're in kind of a soft launch mode. Clients are being trained. They actually have signs. Goodwill has been a fantastic partner in this endeavor. When it is launched, we will invite everyone to come out to the grand opening. But clients will be participating in a class and then doing this. I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. And we did connect with the City of San Jose. They have a Work to Future workforce development project that can be connected with internships and apprenticeships paid. And they were coming in and working with people who are 18 to 24, and we've been really excited about that partnership. Anywhere that we can provide people in custody something that builds to their strengths, something that helps connect them to employment when they're released, and to increase their chance of success are really things that we're focused on doing. And then we are working on some, I won't go through all of them. I think, honestly, the one I'm most excited about is the women's choir. That was the brainchild of Jenny Brooks, who's a rehabilitation officer. We're working with San Jose State Music Department, and they're going to have students, and we're going to be running a women's choir program. So we're really excited to have just some pro-social activities, things you can do that feel like you're expressing yourself that aren't always related or connected to therapeutic intervention, something that's a little bit positive and light for clients as they're experiencing that. So I want to give you an example of how this works, our relationship. So Aramark has this Into Work vocational program. For those of you who don't know, they're a very big second chance employer. They also have a hiring program for when they work with people in custody to connect them with employment services after they are released. They have a hotline, they have services, they have people that connect clients to employment. They have a 3-class certificate program that right now are, women who are in custody are going through the certificate program. And while they're going the certificate program, they're also receiving training from Goodwill. They're actually using their hands-on experience in the Goodwill store. They'll be learning about inventory and budgeting and scheduling, warehouse, all these different types of things. And that way, when they're released, Aramark is going to work with those participants and help get them employed in the retail space with those skills. So it's like the perfect blending of opportunity. The nice thing about the Goodwill store is when people are getting close to release, they can go and they can shop in the store. They can receive clothes, a backpack, shoes, brand new socks and underwear. It's really nice to have something that you feel like you are leaving the facility and something you feel good about. And so we're really excited that that will be launching soon. Just pictures of the Goodwill store in action. So you can see Goodwill even made a store that says Goodwill at Elmwood. So just wanted to show you some of our work in action. It's not finished. These are some early pictures. But clients are really excited. There's a lot of chatter on campus, and we're really excited about this project. So that's to highlight some things. In the first 8 months I've been here, I have noticed that we do have some holes. The first one is thinking about services that start in custody, but they're having the same service provider that follows the client out into the community. One of the success stories that we have received recently was working with one of our partners called STEP. STEP was working with them in custody. The same exact person who worked with that person in custody was able to work with them in the community. They said they felt safe. They said they felt they knew who to talk to, where to go. They didn't have to reiterate all of the things that they had to share earlier. And so we really want to work on that flow of services that start in the facilities, but also follow the client into the community. Substance use still remains a large problem. We've been working really great with our partners on creative ways to improve services. Parenting, we would love to bring back parenting classes, parenting support, more visitation with children and their parents. Obtaining IDs, we're trying to launch a pilot. We did a survey to see how many clients actually had their ID on person and how many might be in their personal belongings. We're really trying to work with the state. We are on the list. We're a little far down on the list, but we're down on the list to get approval to request their IDs in custody, but we're still pushing forward and lobbying hard for that. Housing still remains an issue, pro-social activities, and then immediate employment upon release. And so that's one thing clients really, really want. They have families, they have things they need to take care of. They're really looking to be employed that first week when they get out. And so that's a huge thing for us to focus on. So the ways that we're going to kind of address some of these issues is the first one is really working towards a therapeutic environment. And so, you truly can't have a therapeutic environment in custody, but you can work towards that goal. And so one of the things that we really want to do is we want to think about levels of care. We want to ensure that we're offering all levels of care. Custody behavioral health does a tremendous job with the resources they have, and yet they still could use more resources, more staffing. Staffing is always a challenge, but there really is quite the need for therapeutic interventions and groups in custody. Also having kind of a connection, one of the things that we're finding is, goes back to the old data sharing discussions that we have, is being able to share data in order to work with clients effectively. We're having really great productive conversations with partners on this in order to improve that. And then one of the last things on this slide, I'm not going to read the whole slide to you, is really thinking about a more trauma-informed physical environment. So one of the things that we are working on is trying to work closely with some of the schools on getting more murals, thinking about softening of colors, thinking about different ways to create an environment that feels a little bit more welcoming and not so harsh. And so we are doing what we can within the realm of our budgets and parameters, but it's definitely a focus of ours. Just to give you an idea of all the partners that are doing really great work in custody, we have such an array of people who are providing services, but they're still very limited in what is available to clients, especially for clients where Spanish is their primary language. We had a rehabilitation officer who worked with one of our higher level interns to create a Spanish session for clients who need recovery support, and it's been very well received, and we're really working on expanding those services that are for Spanish speakers. One of the other things I'd like to also just lay out is, I put on my researcher hat, is oftentimes I think we lift programs up because we see a need and we put the program in place. And I just really want to advocate for quality over quantity. Because this slide is a great example of what happens when you implement a best practice and you don't do it to fidelity. It can actually have worse outcomes than if you did nothing at all. And so there's a variety of reasons for that, maybe unpacking someone's trauma and not being able to process them through that trauma correctly, triggering people and not, decompressing them from that trigger. But what we do know is doing something really well and thoughtfully has the most impact. And so instead of having like 20 different kinds of services, do 1 or 2 or 3 services really, really well to have that impact. That's especially true for things related to substance use, and for cognitive behavioral therapy is doing it really well and really thoughtfully. So the second step we want to do is to support and develop staff. When I first came into the unit, I interviewed every single person in the division. And so it took a little while, but it was really fantastic to hear from all the units. What are the strengths? What are the barriers? How are things going? What I did is I took that feedback and I made some changes. The first one is we're really working on a series of training for staff. They're not sworn staff, so they're not included in the sworn staff training. They don't really fall into anything else in particular. They're kind of in a weird world. So really working on professional development and those trainings I think is really important. The other thing is we're working on improving our internship experience and expanding it. We're hoping to get higher level clinical interns in to also provide more services. It also helps train and hopefully become our next staff, right? So great people and have that experience, and hopefully they'll want to stay and work with us long term. At my 6-month mark, I did a 360 anonymously to all the staff and every unit in my division to get feedback. It was overwhelmingly positive. I feel like we're on a great track. I feel like staff are feeling optimistic about positive changes, places that the department can go to help people who are in custody. And so it's really exciting. And, you know, he's my boss, but it really is by the leadership of the sheriff. And there definitely is a renewed momentum in providing quality services. So we're really excited about this. All right, the next thing is moving forward is improving service coordination. We've had similar conversations about how everyone's working in siloed, but we're really starting to proactively reach out to partners. We've had great conversations with probation about engaging in a contract that they're using to use that service for clients. We are working really closely with Custody Health and Custody Behavioral Health. They're amazing partners. We even have been having conversations with County Public Health on starting a wellness series focused on obesity. So anywhere that we can reach out and we can partner and we can have communications and keep everyone in the loop is really helpful. I think the biggest challenge I'm finding here in my time is the issue of case plans. And so the number of case plans that clients have are astronomical, and everyone is doing kind of their role. But you might have a case plan for while you're in custody. Maybe you have a provider. We have volunteers that come in. They might have one with probation. They might have one with any other amount of partners. And then it's hard for clients to know the source of truth. And so being able to problem solve this is high on my agenda. We've had some really great conversations about how can we data share enough that we can see the list of clients and then just who's the lead. And then anyone else who wants to work with that client then could reach out to that lead organization. So we are having discussions on how to maybe bring that to bear, but that is the biggest challenge is everyone's doing great work, but it's overwhelming for clients. It's overwhelming for them to know where to follow and how to happen. And so the other thing we're really excited about for improving service coordination, obviously, is the new CalAIM initiative, which you know is being led by HHS, and we're really excited to have dollars that will help fund more programming in custody, and that has really brought about fantastic conversations between partners, and they've been fantastic leaders in that endeavor. So as you know, that launches October 1st. It's kind of a soft launch of itself, but we're really excited about what these dollars could do for people in custody. And then the last, well, it's not the last one, but expanding vocational opportunities. This is a huge request from clients in custody. I shadowed all of the rehabilitation officers in their units. I go out, talk with clients, meet with clients. And a big thing is, hey, like I used to do this, but I haven't done it in a while. I'd like to get back to this kind of job. I'm really worried. Like I have, a wife and 2 kids, and I have to find a job when I get out. And a lot of people are asking for vocational experience as well. So we are really working on launching more additional vocational programming. And if anyone, we had some great connections from Supervisor Ellenberg to some of the trades. We actually are going to be launching a project with the pipe trades, and they're probably going to hold a few spots for us in their paid apprenticeship program. And so things are really starting to unfold, and we're really excited about building out the vocational services for people in custody. And as you know, we will be reporting on this at the Reentry Network, but just to give you a heads up, we do have a strategic plan for the women's services. We are working hard on following up on a lot of those goals. Quite a few things on our list have been accomplished, and we're really excited about that. It only continues to expand as we finish something, we think, oh, we could also do this. So we're really excited. We had a great meeting with Office of Women's Policy on partnering with them on some projects as well. And so I'm feeling really confident that our strategic plan is going well to plan, and we're hearing a lot of positive feedback from women in custody on some of the things that they're experiencing. And then we are getting ready to create what's called a provider portal. As I said before, there are a lot of people who provide services in the facility. One of the things that I want to do is to structure that in a way that people know how to provide services. Oh, I want to provide a service, where do I start? So we're creating a provider portal, so once people are providing a service, they can find all the information they need. How do I get a clearance for my staff? How do clearances work? Here's the contact to get the form. Here's how long it can take. Here's the forms you need to get clearance for materials. That's a big question we often get. Also on this website, they'll be able to see if they've completed their safety training, their PREA training, and when their clearance expires, so that we can hopefully not run into anybody with expired clearances. But really, in beefing up our community collaborative meetings and our communication has already started to help streamlining a lot of those efforts. And I think as we do see CalAIM, we'll probably see more providers want to come in the facility. So having this organized standard process and having really a resource for people to ask questions and get information is really going to be wonderful. And then exploring alternatives to custody. So one of the things that we are hoping to do is to research to see what models have happened. I know through this body and also the board, there has also been some research that we also are including in that space. But what are some possible ways and who are the clients in custody that could be released earlier? How do we do that safely, and how do we do that so that they're successful? We are hoping to launch some discussions with some community partners in early 2025, but we also have some internal conversations with county partners on funding models and staffing. But we are looking forward to expanding those opportunities moving forward. And that is my last slide.
Whew.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm excited, so I'm sorry.
It is. No, don't apologize. It was a lot, and it's a lot of really incredible work. Let me go first to see if we have public commenters, and then I'll come back to the dais for questions and discussions. Do we have public speakers on this item?
We have one speaker on Zoom.
All right. Let's hear our single speaker, please.
Ben, I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, I'm glad that we're offering these services to inmates. I mean, it's important to offer conditions to improve their lives, because eventually they're going to be released. But what I didn't hear in this report are potential abuses that can occur in these services. If I could give you an example, there was Giorgio Raul Garcia, and he used to be a county employee, and apparently he had sexually abused a girl, and the mother, she came to the county and she reported it to the county, and the county said the mother has psychiatric issues and they wouldn't address the sexual abuse of the child. And then the guy went on to abuse several other children, and it's all because the county, he was connected to the county. He had lots of connections, so nobody did anything. And I know that the mother, she didn't enter the system, so it doesn't quite relate to an abuse in the system. But I can say that happened to me, that charges were filed against me, and then the DA's office immediately went out and raised the doubt as to my competency to stand trial when I didn't even commit a crime. And the whole goal was to conceal the sexual abuse from my kids. And that's just, it's a wrong abuse to have in our system. And the taxpayer shouldn't be footing the bill for this. I mean, nobody wants to, I mean, everybody in this room right now is chipping in for the concealment of the sexual abuse of my kids. And that's something that we need to change, and I hope we can address these potential abuses. Thank you for your.
That's the final speaker.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Chavez, would you like to start?
I see we have a lot of lights on. I'm happy to wait
Oh.
till
Thank you very much. Let's start with Sheriff Johnson and then Public Defender O'Neill.
No, I'll keep it very brief. I just wanted to thank both of you. You were a major part of the integration of this division by giving us this position last year's budget. So thank you for that. And I will say the hiring of Dr. Childs has probably been one of the most impressive things we've done. And I say that with no disrespect to anything else. But she, because of her connections, both locally, state, and throughout this county in particular, she has been able to hit the ground running, and as you just heard, done some amazing things in a relatively short period of time. So we're super excited to have her part of our team. She's doing phenomenal work. She has great ROs working with her as well, and the collaboration is very exciting for this county. So thank you for being part of our team, and thank you for that presentation.
Public Defender O'Neill.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Child. It's so nice to have you back with the county and to see you. And I honestly am blown away by the presentation you just gave. I mean, jails historically are very sick environments, and I can see that so much work is being done to improve that. So thank you for that. We share clients in this realm, and I know that everyone is going to benefit from these programs. I had a quick question on a slide you presented on to show throwing up programs without fidelity doesn't work, but I didn't understand on that slide what competent and not competent means. I know it's not the mental health technical term we use, but I was wondering if you could explain it.
No, that's a great question. So if you're doing a promising practice, best practice, evidence-based practice, one of the things that we talk about is often people have to be trained in that model. So there is a specific way that model should be implemented. So being competently trained, being competently trained in that is important. One of the things that I have found in history, and not just this county, just...
Holly, may I ask that we pull that slide back up so you can also walk us through it? Thank you, Amanda.
There you go. One of the things that I have found, it's just a national problem, is oftentimes they'll say, we want an evidence-based practice. And then someone puts out an RFP, organizations apply for it, they find an evidence-based practice, but they don't actually train their staff to do it. They don't do any quality assurance. And so what happens is things sway from the original practice. You'll hear people say, well, we just chose the parts that we liked, or we just chose the parts that was easy to do with the clients. And that's where you have a competency issue, right? The person who's providing the service is not competent in the service. And oftentimes you'll see that the outcomes will be worse than if you did nothing at all. So one of the things that probation did really well when they launched the SYTF is they started doing the CBT model through the University of Cincinnati. They had their staff trained, and then they do fidelity follow-ups. So they do QA, like are the sessions running the way they're supposed to? Are they doing it in order? Is the facilitator like engaging and participating the way that they should be? And it's critical. And oftentimes what happens are people just launch a service and maybe they find or buy a curriculum or they do something, but they don't actually follow it. And what we've seen time and time again, the same can be seen for aggression replacement therapy, for lots of different interventions that when not done the way that it was designed, clients actually have worse outcomes. It does require more resources to launch a program, but your outcomes will pay off in dividends.
Holly, can you just tell us kind of how to read the slide too?
Sure,
Because
sure.
I tracked everything you're saying. I'm just not able to
sure. I know, I'm
connect it
sorry.
on the slide.
I'm sorry. So let's focus on just the 18 months because that's like your long-term outcome. So in green, that is the percentage of people who recidivated. That is the column of someone who received functional family therapy, but it was not to fidelity. So you'll see 32% of people in that group recidivated. You move to the next one, which is your control group, which means they just received services normal. They did not receive any form of this therapy, like your control group. They recidivated 27%, so they received no service. And then when it was competently, when it was done as it was designed, your recidivism rate dropped to 17%.
Thank you. I think the piece that
Sorry,
was missing is
sorry.
what's being measured, that it's the
Sorry,
recidivism
yes,
rate. No,
yes.
thank you, that was
Sorry.
clear. And
Got
Greta,
it.
thank
So
you.
better to not, the takeaway is better to have not done it at all than to have done it poorly.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
The quality of service is just as important as the quantity. And I think sometimes there's a rush to get services to meet a need. But when that happens, it can actually cause more harm than good oftentimes. I'm not going to say every single time, but often.
Javier?
Yes, I just want to say briefly thank you, Dr. Child and her staff, for really just that renewed collaboration and partnership. We've been sending some of our staff to the chapel on Wednesdays, really engaging the clients, and and then learning a lot about, like you mentioned, the challenge of clients having so many multiple case planners, navigators, managers, and having to figure that out. So looking forward to that continued discussion. And then lastly, we look forward to continued identifying the right in custody to community programming with the county's approval of having ongoing funding for reentry services. We'll be launching an RFP later this year. So we'll be working closely with Dr. Child to figure out which other programs in custody can work out in the community. And then of the list of the wish list, which are those that we could partner and include in the RFP. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Javier. I'm now hearing people say your name Child and Childs. There's no S,
no
correct?
S,
It
yeah.
is Child.
But I'll answer to anything. It's okay.
Well, it's good to it's
No
good for
S.
everyone to get it right. Thank you,
No
Dr.
S.
Child. I'll go first to my colleague, and then I'll finish up with comments.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the presentation, especially one sheet that says, still lacking sufficient resources to support people leaving custody effectively, and just listing out our gaps. I just want to say to all of you, please keep doing that, because whenever we don't do that and we give a high-level presentation, we act like everything's working, clients come to us and tell us it isn't, and it's very confusing, and this makes it more real, which is this is the work we still have left to do. So I want to just say how important I think that is. Second is that I know we have a lot of other things on the agenda, and I'm going to get some time with you before I leave, but there are two issues I just wanted to make sure, or three that I wanted to make sure I raised with everyone. One is that I have been very interested in whether or not it makes sense for us to have dry locations identified in custody where people know that they're in a location where they're going to get more programming and there's less risk of them being exposed to drugs and alcohol while they're trying to get clean. And I don't know if that's something you're already doing, but it's something I'm very interested in seeing us do.
No, actually, it's a great question or observation. We just talked about this yesterday, as a matter of fact. And, the reality is, the challenge is, drugs and alcohol are not legal in the jails. With that said, we know they get into the jails, and that's the problem. And we've heard that from clients as well. Their desire to try to have as much as possible a drug-free environment so they can really focus on their learning. So it is something that we're talking about and working on.
So I understand that I understand that wrinkle. I do think that maybe the way to couch it is with a higher level of programming accepted, meaning that you're going to have a certain number of hours of programming as a way to maybe distinguish the locations. But I just want to say that what we know is that, it's why we have sober living environments for people when they leave, right? So that there's less risk. The second is that I'm very interested in having you take a deeper dive into how we address visitation. And I want to just share what I mean by that. I do think part of people being able to come back to the community is them staying connected to children, family members, or others. I've had 2 requests from parents to see their children who are in custody, adult children, and both parents had issues of their own, one with drunk driving and I can't remember the other. But they were so interested in staying in their children's lives, and we were not able to facilitate visitation. And I think we collectively have to better think through if in fact we know that those human connections matter and caring matters, then how do we look at the rules we have in place today that are intended to be protective, and I understand that, but marry that with what the outcome is that we want for our clients. So I'm just going to leave that on the table for another day of discussion. And then I wanted to go to this case coordination and services received inside and out. But hearing you say this is very affirming, because I think that our ability to be seamless and not have 42 case navigators for every person is so incredibly important. I think we waste a lot of resources, and we're not able to provide clients support. We have a lot of people giving clients direction. And I worry even about how we, and this I'm saying again to my colleagues, is that, and Susan, I think, I'm very interested in us thinking through as a county how we identify what it means to be somebody who provides support to another human being that's going through a process. What kind of training do they get? And I don't think we need to ratchet everything up to a social worker, a psychotherapist. I think, in fact, these could and should be paraprofessionals. But I think having a distinct set of expectations for the skill sets for that person, and some mechanism between all of our own systems to prioritize the programs, and most often in partnership with the courts, because the court, what happens is every time someone gets a case, they get a whole new set of list of things, and I don't know, I don't know the right way for that coordination to happen, but I am 100% sure that we, for a lot of our clients, by the time they get to our offices, we couldn't be less helpful if we actually tried. Really, truly. And so, however that has to happen, I do think that that our organization, we still function in silos pretty dramatically. So I think some of it is our own culture marrying what people need versus the other way around. But I just want to really encourage you to stay on that, and really encourage, especially in the public safety and justice environment, that we kind of wrestle that one to the ground. But I'm going to get some time with you before I leave to give some other thoughts. Thank you.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Greta.
I just wanted to put an exclamation point behind something Supervisor Chavez just said that's connected to something you said earlier, Holly, which is I do think part of what Dr. Child was conveying about doing fewer things but doing them better speaks to the point that you made, which is if I'm getting 15 different services from 15 different people, the quality of connection I have with any one of those service providers and the depth of impact of that service is really diminished. And we have really significant staffing constraints across all of these realms. And another point that you made, Supervisor, is one that we're working on in the background, and I'll just express appreciation to the court, because the court's a critical partner in this. A lot of the ways that we've structured the way people go to court, where their cases are heard, what lawyers they have to cover multiple different courtrooms, really creates a huge number of people who are touching folks who are moving through the criminal justice system, none of whom is in a role to really focus on that person and provide the services they need, because they're being shuffled from courtroom to courtroom, lawyer to lawyer, service provider to service provider. We also have a really immense facility-related challenge where we're doing that, which is the same limited space that we need to utilize to provide critically needed health care is the same space that Dr. Child would otherwise utilize to provide services to folks, and the privacy we need for someone receiving health care is incompatible with then using, say, a big open space to also have a program going on at the same time. And so some of these challenges can only be solved through some of the facilities work that we're going to be doing. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that Dr. Child is going to be a really critical partner as we're doing this holistic assessment of what we can be using of our current facilities to better operate in the ways that we're all wanting to see them operate, and also what modifications or new facilities are critically needed to actually facilitate this work, in addition to just the core custody and health work that we're doing, including things like visiting spaces.
Just to say out loud, it's something that's been perplexing to me ever since we started talking about the jail rebuild, which is we do not have a goal or an outcome that drives either the facilities or our programming in one. You all use the word fidelity, and I understand the term, but I think we aren't, like, if the way we think about these structures is so, it's amorphous. Instead of saying, our obligation is to have the safest community we can, which means that once somebody's in custody, we need them not to recidivate. So how is the structure, physical structure, how is all of our programming, how is all of our training aligned to public safety from the perspective of how we want to see people comport themselves in the world versus what we do now, which is very confusing, and it's almost department by department in terms of, is it punishment? And it's many, many things, but with one single outcome. And the outcome is, do we have a safer community? And can we demonstrate that by people who are in our custodial care coming out and recidivating less than any place else in the country, period. So I look forward to seeing how that program builds into, I mean, because I actually think the outcomes need to come before any facility, which has been my frustration with the facility discussion all along. But thank you, and thanks for that, Greta, it's super helpful.
I really appreciate hearing that because I think that almost more than anything else over the years of discussing new jail and design and do it or don't do it, that crystallizes, I think that will crystallize a direction forward because that is the goal. We want people to be in better shape when they come out than when they went in, and just as you said, not to recidivate. And I think if we hold that at the top for design, for budget, for staffing, for programming, we would be able to articulate why we're doing what we're doing, and I think build support in a different way. So just thank you for that. Did you turn your light on briefly?
Yes.
It is on. Okay.
Yes. So I just wanted to add, obviously, thank you so much to Dr. Child for being here, but one of the things that we need to be mindful of too is that, you know, on one end, we are working very hard to reduce the jail population, to put it in a place where we only are holding the people that need to be held pre-trial. And we have the vast majority of our clients that are in there are pre-trial. So, you know, but the other challenge is that when you create something great, how exclusive is it? You know, what are the rules to admit those that can take advantage of those services? And that goes to the points made earlier, that we need to have some guiding principles and some guiding values, because the creation of rules for the sake of creating rules in them themselves will not serve our ultimate purpose and objective. But the other thing is, it's the net widening. I am pretty confident you're going to create some successful, wonderful programs with your leadership and the sheriff's leadership. Once we get them, though, it's like our clients should not want to stay in custody because they have a great program.
Agreed.
And because that program doesn't exist elsewhere. And that has been the problem in the past, where it's like, I'm doing great. This is the only place where I can get substance abuse treatment. And if you do a program to fidelity with wonderful staff that are trained to do a really well job, they're going to be like, this is where I need to be. Well, that's counterproductive to our other objective, that they should not be in jail for treatment. They should be in jail while their case is being processed. And we have challenges in that area, but I think that's something to be mindful of as we're looking forward.
Certainly, yes. Thank you.
That is a fascinating perspective. Thank you. I'm going to wrap us up. This was really just an incredible item. I want to make sure we get to the rest of our agenda, but just have to thank you, Dr. Child, for the work of your team. I really appreciate that you recognize Dr. Marshall and how foundational his work was in the development of the college collaborative and the creation of the newly renamed division. I'm so excited about and supportive of the new direction of these programs. I also want to just very quickly thank you for helping to facilitate a tour of Main Jail at Elmwood for my staff. They were able to hear firsthand from individuals in custody about the critical importance of programming on their mental well-being. And when they toured the California Native Gardens Foundation project, which my office was happy to fund through inventory. They heard, just a quick ad, they heard from participants about the piece that they felt in working in the garden and how eager they were to take those skills back to their own homes and communities. One gentleman shared that he was particularly looking forward to building a garden with his child, and he had made a connection to enroll his child in the Foundation's Young Gardeners preschool program. So this is just one example of the positive impact that quality programming can have. An investment in rehabilitative and restorative services clearly will pay dividends, which brings me to the surprising and disappointing item in the ledge file to learn that the division doesn't have a budget for this year. What does that mean? Can you share how you're able to support services?
Yeah, so there's a programs budget that is to operate the programs unit. And really, the only funding that comes for services, the sheriff pays out of the inmate welfare fund. And that pays currently right now for only really religious contracts and some basic education through MAE, but that's all that covers. And I think satellite TV for clients in custody. So the sheriff has been a big advocate about looking for grants. So we're trying to find grants to pay for additional services. I'm sure you'll get a budget request from me at some point in the future asking for funds for services. We don't want to recreate services that our partners can create. So I'm really hoping to support custody health, custody behavioral health, pretrial, reentry on those services that they need. We don't want to duplicate efforts. So we're hoping to do collaborative requests that support clients in custody, but maybe don't need to fund the sheriff directly, but we will need some pocket of funds for in-custody services just to have good core, like parenting, some basic classes like that need to happen in custody to build those relationships.
I think that's critically important. I do encourage you to present to the board at the appropriate time a budget request. I'm sure in the grant searching, you're already reaching out to our state legislators. I see a nod, so say no more there. We really were fortunate to have funding last year from Senator Wahab that went to the faith-based reentry program. I know that we have a very supportive state delegation who may be very eager to fund projects that you're doing. So just thank you for all of that, and we should connect again one-on-one. It's been a while, and again, I just am really excited about the work that you're doing, and really kudos as well to the sheriff for finding Dr. Child, for bringing her on, and for supporting this work. It's really quite tremendous.
Thank you for having us.
Oh. Did I interrupt you? Oh, we
Nope,
need a
just
motion.
thank you.
Oh, thank you. And no action. We don't need to receive the report? Okay, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, just to receive reports. All right, then we'll move along to item 7. We handled 6 out of order. Item 7 is to receive a report from the Office of the County Exec, Sheriff, and Custody Health relating to 12-month update regarding implementations of recommendations from OCLAM.
Good morning. Assistant Sheriff Thomas Duran from the Sheriff's Office. So I just wanted to, we don't have a formal presentation today, but we wanted to share some updates on the work that we've done along with our partners from Custody Health Services. At the end, we'll be available for any questions, if any, as well. So we continue to work with our partners in Adult Custody Health Services to provide ongoing training to deputies and sergeants assigned to the acute psychiatric unit, as well as the subacute housing units within our facilities. We have had approximately 64 deputies that have completed the training that Custody Health Services facilitates. We also have 4 additional classes scheduled for September of 2024. The training focuses on mental health awareness, types of mental illness, PTSD, suicide prevention, and other objectives to assist staff identify mental health symptoms. Staff are also taught about PC 2603, which discusses involuntary medication orders as well. We also discuss the importance of communication and collaboration between custody and custody health. The Office of the Sheriff has also maintained ongoing communication with Oakland to provide updates on recommendations related to the staffing plan for the acute and subacute units. We're utilizing a selection process as well that requires a review of the deputies' qualifications to ensure that the deputies assigned to the unit have the appropriate experience and temperament to work in the acute and subacute units as well. Our process includes ensuring that any deputy assigned to the acute or subacute unit has completed crisis intervention training, the mental health awareness training provided by Custody Health Services, as well as the ADA, use of force, de-escalation, and suicide prevention training required as a part of the consent decree. We've also implemented training specific to duties and responsibilities that are required in the acute and subacute units, and ensure that any new deputy assigned to these units is assigned a training officer that presents and demonstrates these duties to the newly assigned deputy. All materials and documentation related to the selection process and the training have been provided and shared with Oakland as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the report. I do have a couple of questions regarding a few of the recommendations, but I'll look first to see if we have public commenters.
There are no requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. Regarding recommendation 3, to develop a different classification and pay rate for deputies that are working in the acute psychiatric unit, it's been about a year, I think, since we were talking about that. The report stated that the sheriff is working with ESA regarding the feasibility of change. Is there any update on developing a bonus classification? I'm looking in both directions.
So we're still working with ESA on that one because there's contract issues related to it. It makes it a little more difficult. So we are continuing those conversations with ESA to see if that's something that's possible.
Okay, great. When there is news or an update, it would be, I'd appreciate hearing about that here. Regarding 15, for Custody Health Services to conduct a set number, of random audits each month to verify the accuracy of nurses' progress notes, assessments, and welfare check logs, again, within the APU. My staff did connect already with Rocio and Paul, but for the record, I'd like to ask that the 12-month update on recommendation 15 be resubmitted. For context, the 6-month update addresses the point about creating an auditing process for APU video recorded sessions, but it's not clear from the language in the 12-month update if this auditing process is happening. I don't know if you want to respond to that now or just resubmit.
There we go. Hi, Supervisor Ellenberg. I'm Dr. Cliff Wang. I'm the Interim Director of Custody Health. Nice to see you again.
Hello, Doctor.
So I can respond to that. I think in response, I would say that, yes, we're ongoing. We're trying to retrain staff in terms of before doing the audits and stuff. So I think that's why there's been a delay in terms of doing the actual audits. We do think that video auditing is probably not the most effective way of doing that. We usually use that as a last resort. It's very time consuming, but also you can't actually get certain information that you need to get, particularly if you're looking at nursing assessments, progress notes and stuff. You can't see that on a video camera and stuff. So what we have actually put forth is actually 2 kinds of auditing. One's real-time auditing, where we actually are in the unit checking to see what's going on in real time, as well as periodic auditing. So we'll put that in our report as we go forward with that.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that clarification. Supervisor Chavez, do you have any questions on this item? No? All right. Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 8, which is to receive the annual report from the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention. Welcome, Carla.
Chair Ellenberg, Vice Chair Chavez, members of the Public Safety and Justice Committee, and members of the public. I'm Carla Collins with the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention in the County Executive's Division of Equity and Social Justice, and I'm very happy to provide you this annual update on the work and answer any questions. Just a super brief summary. This last fiscal year has really been about the completion of our most recent RFP for services for survivors of gender-based violence and the launch of our first ever county gender-based violence needs assessment, as we've continued our efforts around training, addressing those who do harm, engaging men and boys, addressing root causes to end gender-based violence, including housing and economic empowerment for survivors. And then two of our major initiatives, gender-based violence and harassment in the world of work. We really appreciate you being at the launch of that, Chair Ellenberg. And our System Accountability for Effective Responses, or our SAFER initiative, which is reimagining the work of Green Book, which is looking at the intersection of child welfare and gender-based violence for systems-involved families. We do all this using our DESJ pro-equity approaches and strategies, and more importantly, we do all this in partnership with our county colleagues and community partners. So as a policy office, our focus is always to ask, how is this policy, this protocol, this program, this dollar of public funds serving survivors and families? How is this keeping our community safer, and how is this supporting residents who need to heal? Or how are we providing resources, supports, structures, so that residents are safe at home, in the classroom, at work, or in our community? And we want folks here in Santa Clara County not just to have the opportunity to heal, but to thrive. So we know none of this can happen without the strong collaboration and partnership with our community partners who are on the front lines of this work. Our CBOs have continued to do their great work this past year while successfully advocating at the federal and state levels against proposed cuts to their funding. The Domestic Violence Advocacy Consortium led the Northern California rally and response that resulted in the governor's revised budget, and at least for this fiscal year, a restoration of most of their state and federal funding. The work of our county leadership to support these efforts and to advocate federally, particularly with our National Association of Counties, meant their success, and it is deeply appreciated. And so, as you all know, this has been a tough year, but a successful one that has made this current year a space where we can be just a bit hopeful. Since the time that this report was prepared, we have over $13.5 million in contracted services that were in place as of July 1, and we have our needs assessment findings and recommendations coming mid-year. We also have our 31st annual Domestic Violence Conference on Friday, October 25th. This year's theme, Pathways to Inclusion, will guide us in exploring new ways to reach underserved communities. The day will be filled with inspiring speakers, hands-on workshops, and opportunities to build connections with others who share a commitment to ending gender-based violence. And you are all and each cordially invited, and we hope to see you there. So with that, if there are any questions, both Maribel Martinez and I are available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and really just tremendous work since the last report. It's impressive to hear. Let's see first if we have public speakers.
There is one request to speak on Zoom.
All right.
Ben, I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Yes, I mean, I really disagree that we had a successful year. I mean, we spent millions of dollars. I looked at the report. I think it was almost 11 or 12. But, I mean, I'm telling you guys, each and every one of you and people, whoever's at this meeting, that my kids are being sexually abused, and you won't even spend a penny to do a screening for them. I mean, you'd rather allocate money to the DA's office to file charges against me and to conceal the abuse like it never happened, rather than to do the right thing and just do a screening. I mean, my son, he's already confirmed that beginning at the age of 13, that my ex-wife was allowing a man to rape him. And I tell you guys that my other kids are also showing the same type of sexual abuse. And the only response, besides the charges, is gaslighting. I mean, we've already been through the Catholic Church fiasco. I mean, we couldn't believe it. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I heard it that parents were being gaslit and the sexual abuse was allowed to continue. I mean, it sounds like something that would come out of like the 1500s. I mean, it was terrible what they allowed to happen to the kids. And here it is, 2024. I'm telling you guys directly in a public meeting, and you guys just ignore it. I mean, how many meetings have you guys heard me speak at already? And it's always the same response. You go on to the next agenda item, and you act like I never said a thing to you. And it's just, this is something, the culture, we need to change it. Sexual abuse should not be tolerated. It doesn't matter who's doing it.
That was our final speaker.
Thank you. Supervisor Chavez, do you have questions or comments on this item?
You know, first I wanted to just start by saying thank you. I know this has been a life's work for you and really appreciate it. I wondered if you could take just a minute to talk a little bit about the study on the gaps and the timing that study will be available to the board and the public, actually.
Sure. It's an aggressive timeline, but the study is underway. We've contracted with 2 agencies, the Maroon Society and the Battered Women's Justice Project. Maroon Society is the principal investigator doing this study. They're looking at a lot of the reports that have been done in the last 5 years and the data that's available from all the cities within the county and our sheriff's office and our community-based agencies to get a better sense of the prevalence issue within Santa Clara County. And they're conducting currently 25 key stakeholder interviews and doing 8 focus groups, mostly with various vulnerable populations of survivors, but also with, there's I think 2 that are with service providers. And then they're going to launch very soon an online survey that is expected to reach at least 1,000 community members. All of that will result in an analysis and then some findings and some recommendations on the gaps of who's not being served and how we might do better. That is expected at the end of this calendar year, so probably presented at the beginning of 2025 to the board.
So a couple things that I just want to make sure get highlighted. One is that when we think about vulnerable groups, I want to make sure that we're speaking to women who are in custody, both women and girls, and also those who've been in custody. And I don't know that those are necessarily best done in groups or if there are individual interviews that you would recommend, but I'm very interested in that. Also with the overlap, and this is a little bit challenging, with the overlap of girls who are truant and not going to school. And part of the reason I'm interested in that is that, at least from, I don't think it was a study, but I wouldn't be able to grab it, but it was an article I was reading about obviously seeing an increase in girls getting arrested around times of being sexually assaulted or something else happening in their lives. So I'm interested in understanding that, how that is happening. But the other is that from at least one article I read, there was a drop in girls going to school who were being sexually harassed on campus or assaulted or other things happening to them. I know we have the Title IX group doing some similar research, and I would like to make sure that the researchers who are doing the gender-based violence research and the people that we've hired to help us assess the work that's being done with our schools in Title IX at least have a conversation so that we can understand what the throughputs might be there that maybe.
Yes,
yeah.
that's a great idea, and we'll be sure to make those conversations happen. I do want to put on your radar that justice-involved women are definitely
Right.
a part of the group, but we do have concerns and limitations working with minors for the study. And so we're going to have to get creative at looking at ways to address some of the issues with girls.
You know, so maybe off agenda, Carla, just maybe explain what that challenge is. But what I would also say is I know there are a number of institutions that do research now on youth, and so maybe we can better understand how they're handling that. And I see, and Dr. Child, I was actually thinking a little bit about some work that have been done in probation as well, that maybe you could provide a little bit of insight on how to do that. The other issue that I just want to make sure we're, again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be able to say where the cracks are in our system. And I want to just reflect on something that I heard President Ellenberg saying at our board meeting yesterday, which is that when we talk about our systems and don't acknowledge things like that we could have all the services we want, but that if we don't have a home or a house for a child or a family who's fleeing violence, then we have the system is broken. Like, we have a broken part of our system. And so I really appreciated seeing the number of nights that services were provided, but what we have to keep asking people is, and I know this is a hard number to come with, because once someone gets a no from one facility, they call around, and I know we're still trying to get people to use one number, but we have got to acknowledge what we think the room night gap is, because if we're serving 8,772 room nights a year, but we know there's another 8,000 missing, it will just help the board prioritize what we need to be investing in, both, by the way, in terms of interim housing or long-term housing. And the other thing, the reason I'm raising this, colleagues, is that we know that one of the predictors for somebody being engaged in violent crime as an adult is being a victim as a child, whether they are a perpetrator or a continued recipient of being a victim. And so as we're looking at systemic breaks, I think we want to be able to, obviously, I know you all know this, but to make sure that we're taking a look at this information so that we can share it and therefore think about how we're going to address things like housing. And for me, one of the reasons I'm so focused on families being housed is that I think we know this from research, that the more able we are to provide support to families early on, the less we're going to see on the back end in terms of abuse and sexual assault and all of the other things we're trying to avoid. So great, that's really exciting. And then one last point, besides my incredible enthusiasm for the work that you're doing, I am really interested in, the reason I'm so interested in that gap issue is that I've been curious about again, how we're able to actually provide support to victims. And I know I've been bugging you about having that time study because I've been so interested in how long we have victims waiting. I'm nervous that people aren't reporting. I'm nervous that people are leaving because they're waiting too long to get service, either by, from waiting for an officer or waiting for an advocate. So I know that's not covered in this, but I do want to ask, what's the ETA on that other body of work?
So that database system, which was a huge multi-year endeavor, is in place now and is actually being reported through our SART updates, our SART committee updates, and it is in practice and is actually looking at expansion to our Child Advocacy Center.
Could I ask then that off agenda, and then I'll get a meeting with you, that is that the core data contract? That's okay. I've not seen the results of it, so I'm glad the committee has seen it, but I have not, and I don't know if maybe it got reported out at a meeting I wasn't at, so that's entirely possible. So if there was a report done, if we could just get that to the whole board, because I just maybe missed it, and then I'll bug you about the results of it. But I'm really excited to hear. I know it took a while, and it's something that I'm just so excited to see it. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. And Carla as well, really congratulations on a year of good work. The Thriving Pilot Program is sunsetting next year. Will you be able to provide an update on preliminary outcomes once it sunsets?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's also being rigorously evaluated.
Good,
and so
okay.
we're looking for lots of learnings, I think.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I would love to not wait until your next annual report, but if there's an opportunity, either we can look at this agenda or send off agenda to the board. I'm really interested in those learnings. Thank you. Also pleased to learn about the first ever gender-based violence needs assessment. Looking forward to seeing those findings. Is December the right time?
I think it will be completed. The goal
okay.
is for the completion, and so I imagine the presentations will begin in the new year.
Fantastic. And then finally, just want to commend your office for implementing quarterly vendor meetings. That regular communication, I know, is considered a best practice, so thank you for implementing that. Really appreciate all of your work. All right. Item 9 is for announcements. Remember that I pulled 11 off of consent. I will ask that really quickly, but let's do announcements first. Judge McGowan.
Well, I hesitate to trespass on the patience of my colleagues, but I don't really have another forum for announcing some priorities and things relating to the court's budget.
This is it. Go right ahead.
All
please.
right. So with
Yeah.
your indulgence, everyone, I know the time. Let me say, I believe the last time I was here was in May. And May, for the first time, the governor's May revise included a significant budget cut to the judiciary. It had not been part of the original budget. And this is where I am always compelled to remind everyone that the judiciary is a separate and equal branch of government, separate and equal, and we make up just over 1% of the state's budget. The budget cut to us is going to roughly be, for this fiscal year alone, between 5 and 7%. Because of already existing negotiated increases with contracts we have, our county court will probably incur something closer to 8 or 9% of a budget cut. I am pleased to announce that the court did pass our budget Tuesday of last week. And by way of announcement, I do want to make a few announcements. First of all, again, I can't publicly thank Sheriff Johnson enough because last year he reprioritized court. We have committed in this fiscal budget to maintain the 2 open courthouses that we opened because of the additional deputy staffing. We've also committed to keeping open the 3 felony departments that opened in April of last year, thanks to the sheriff's office staffing. The court has also committed that during the coming fiscal year, we will accommodate some of our budget cuts through reduced clerk hours at our clerk's offices, which will be an impact to the public. We tend to try to shave off a couple of hours on our clerk's public hours, which will create delays that we'll see system-wide. We will also follow the county's good example of putting in place some selective hiring freezes, which again will certainly slow some things down. We are limiting our new projects, and we are delaying our facility project for our remaining closed courthouse, which is the Santa Clara Courthouse. We look forward to continuing to partner with the county to problem solve in some of these areas. Our commitment to Care Court and the Racial Justice Act proceedings has not changed. And specifically, the court has voted to continue our commitment to the PAR program. It is expanding through the Public Defender's Office into our felony competency court starting next month. We're very excited about that. It will be the first time that some of the felony competency clients will receive PAR representation. And then we have partnered with the Sheriff's Office and with the jails in an arrest warrant protocol. We started that earlier this year, and we are also hoping to expand that with the DA and the PDO into our felony court by opening a new calendar there. So those are my announcements. Thank you for letting me treat them as such, and I assume you might have a few questions.
We need to think about the format because and I can feel Kavita already, since it's not an agendized item, we actually aren't supposed to have discussion.
Okay.
But I think we need to create an agenda item for the court each time. And if you have a report, terrific. And if you don't, you don't. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Kavita, for keeping us, on track.
Yeah.
I just put them under announcements because the budget only passed on Tuesday.
I totally appreciate that.
Thank
I
you.
just note that we're not supposed to engage in conversation
turning off my
around
mic now.
announcements. But thank you, Judge, and we will fix that for next month. Molly.
Thank you. Just a brief announcement. The Chief Assistant Public Defender, Joe Guzman, who was here yesterday at the board meeting with me, will be retiring at the end of the year, and we have named Miguel Rodriguez, who is a bilingual lawyer in our office. He's amazing. He currently runs our homicide team, but before that, he also supervised our felony team and our misdemeanor team, and I think you will all really enjoy him when he gets here. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anything on this end? Who are you pointing at? Oh, I'm sorry, Nick, I can't see your light. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to announce that we're working with Javier's office to expand the reentry resource center in our adult building. We roughly have anywhere from 120 to 150 clients a day who come through our building. And so being able to have services accessed there immediately instead of us saying, hey, let me give you a token and send you over to reentry where you may or may not go.
Brilliant.
You have to come see us within 48 hours if you're released. So being able to have that on site and connect them immediately, hoping to reduce some of those barriers that Supervisor Chavez talked about, cracks in the system. This is more of a barrier in the system that we create as a system. So we're trying to reduce those barriers. So now, not just those folks who are coming out of jail to receive immediate services, but those folks who come in on a daily basis to meet with their probation officers, we can walk them right down if we find out that there's a need. So we'll keep you updated on that, but thank you.
That's
to Javier
really
and his team.
excellent. Thank you. All right, Greta?
I'll just take this opportunity to provide an update that speaks a bit to the update from the court. As the board is well aware, the courts and the county's budgetary fates are often aligned. And I just want to name something that's well known to all the folks up on this dais, but I think is worth mentioning, which is we do have a lot of opportunities in these leaner times to just rethink how we've structured some of our systems. But I would also name just the incredible coordination challenges we have, in part because of what Judge McGowan mentioned, which is not only is the court a separate entity, we have a lot of independent actors by design in criminal justice for really important reasons, but that also create really significant challenges as we try to look for opportunities to kind of optimize and coordinate. And that also includes really real challenges within the court where there's a lot of independent actors with each of the judges that require just a lot of thoughtful leadership and coordination, and wanted to name that many of the folks around the dais here and lots of the folks in the audience and off doing other work are working hard to try and break through some of those coordination challenges and really look for opportunities where we can actually serve clients better and more efficiently and with leaner, more effective use of resources. So that work's ongoing, including a quarterly leadership meeting that will take place this afternoon that includes the court, includes a lot of the leadership across our criminal justice departments, and myself and others up here at the dais with you today.
Thank you so much. We should really end on those high notes, but thanks to me, we're not, because, so sorry. I did pull item 11, the jail population and bookings report. I'll briefly share my question, but if it's a longer discussion, I'm happy to hold it or bring it to another meeting. Okay. What I was interested in is the average length of stay in custody, and of course, we're beginning to see individuals who are in custody for much longer than ever before. Our facilities really aren't equipped currently to serve these individuals. We're really built for quick and short turnaround times. So Casey, if you have a thought about the best metric to illuminate the average length of stay for this population, I'd be interested in hearing how we can incorporate that.
Thank you, Supervisor, for the question. So after this data was presented at the Reentry Network, a similar question was raised. So I've already been working with Dean Yamasaki and Julie Bork at Pretrial, our data analysts, to further refine what we refer to as the ALOS data, or the average length of stay data. Some of the factors that we think are impacting longer stays and some of the metrics that we're attempting to measure include the nature of the charges, because as we know, most people in custody currently are there for one or more felony charges. So looking at ways in which the charges impact the stay. We're also looking at to what extent those individuals with multiple dockets may be driving longer lengths of stay. Because you can, for instance, have somebody who it looks as if they're in custody for a misdemeanor but have an underlying felony. And lastly, we're trying to understand how the case backlog is also driving the length of stay increase, because what we know is that our cases are just generally taking a longer time to adjudicate. So those are all the data points that we're looking at, and we anticipate that we'll have these updates ready for presentation and discussion for the next quarterly report.
Thank you so much. I
You're welcome.
really appreciate that response. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
In which case, we are adjourned. We'll see everyone next month. Thank you.